language lovers. So today I decided to make an audio record on how I learn multiple languages at once, part 1. So if you guys don't know, I learned Korean and Italian at the same time, both at a beginner level. So a lot of people might question, a lot of people might doubt. A lot of people might be confused, why are you learning multiple languages at once? It's a highly debated topic in the language learning community. A lot of people say you can learn multiple languages at once, 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many languages you would like to. A few other people say no, you can't, it's impossible. My answer to that question is there is not really a right or wrong answer to that question, because you cannot measure what people's brains or what people are capable of doing. Everybody is capable of doing anything. If a human being was capable to make an airplane, you are capable to learn 2 languages, 3 languages, 4 languages at once. Thank you. So anyway, so let's continue. So basically, the question is, so how do I manage? So what I do is the 80-20% method. So what is this method? Is that even a method? No, I just made it up. So I do Korean 80%. I focus 80% of my time with Korean and 20% of my time with Italian. So how does that work? So do I learn more Korean or do I learn more Italian? Surprisingly enough, I actually learn more Italian, and I will explain why. Okay, so what I do with Korean, I focus in language learning with Korean. I've said Korean again, so anyways. So I focus Korean for language learning, and for Italian I do what is called language acquisition, and I'll be explaining further what is language acquisition. I was actually doing that method without even knowing what in the hecaroni was language acquisition. So according to Google, language learning refers to learning about a language, its sounds, its structure, and it's largely an intellectual exercise. So basically, if you are focusing on language learning, you are most likely to be focused on getting proficiency, like topic, which is for Korean, and so those very famous proficiency tests. So when it comes to language acquisition, basically means when you are somehow observing your target language, sound system, and structure, ideally without ever thinking, explicitly, and the language actual structure. So basically it's how babies learn, or even that person, everybody has that friend that learn English with just using movies, or that person that just learned Korean with K-dramas. I know a friend that knows a lot of Korean sentences with just K-dramas. She never studied Korean. She studied Korean, but not as much, but she has only an understanding of how the language works. And this is how language acquisition comes in place. I feel like I need to make another audio for language acquisition so people can understand a lot better, but this is just how I do it. Okay, so let me just get back into the language learning versus language acquisition. So basically for Korean, I take an online course from Coursera, and I have a few PDF books, and I focus on a lot of active learning, active listening and passive listening, but not mostly active listening with podcasts. So I concentrate a lot on what they're saying. For that reason is because also Korean is a lot harder than Italian for me, based on the language that I already speak, and Korean is fairly different. Meanwhile, Italian is quite similar to my native tongue, so I kind of have an understanding of the grammar structure, sentence structure, and everything. Not everything, a few things. And there's a few similar vocabulary, so I can get a hang of it a lot easier. So with Italian, my approach is a language acquisition. in which I do a lot of passive listening, which I listen to a lot of things without even understanding. I do a lot of shadowing, practicing a few things that I have learned here and there, and I read a lot of short stories or mini stories with Italian. So I hope you guys liked part 1 of how I learned multiple languages at once. So stay tuned for part 2, and also for my language acquisition. We're talking a little bit further about language acquisition, because I feel like it's such an interesting topic and should be debated a lot more in the language learning community. Thank you so much for listening to this really short clip, and yes, I hope you guys have an amazing language learning journey. Thank you. Bye. Please don't forget to follow my page, Loving Lang, and stay tuned for the next